Hey, Garland Nixon here, hanging out with the one and only Matt Weinglass, and we got a bunch of things to talk about. He's going to update on the latest weird crap going on in Hollywood. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here with the one and only Matt Weinglass. Matt Weinglass has a great show on Rumble. It's called The Homeless Left. Also, they've got a show, wink, wink, on YouTube called THL Presents. And so check that out also. It's kind of a pirate radio, shall we say. I don't know. I'm sure Google knows what the hell's going on. But for some reason, THL Presents is still on YouTube. And of course, The Homeless Left is his home on Rumble. I guess if you're the homeless left, Rumble's the only home left for you. You can't be on YouTube. You get kicked off of here. All right, let's talk. Lots of stuff going on in Hollywood and beyond. One of the first things I wanted to ask you about, of course, is the old Zionist project going on there. And I saw this. I've been, found out about all these fires going on, and I understand that there's more information coming out. What do we know about the fires of Israel?
Right. So yes, Garland, the fires they broke out on last Wednesday, I believe, on the 30th, and we were prepping for our show the next day, and we saw this, and obviously we have to, as indie media folks, we have to kind of take the correct approach to these things, just kind of figure out what's going on, and then try to answer questions as we go. And right away it was like, oh, this is really interesting timing. It's happening right around what they call their Independence Day. As we know, we understand Nakba. We understand what it means when we talk about the settlers coming 78 years ago, taking this land, pillaging, raping, taking the property, moving all the Palestinians out, whoever survived then. So we understand the historical context, but it was the irony of the fact that this was happening on the day the day before they were trying to celebrate what they called their Independence Day. We were just kind of seeing this, these massive fires going in Jerusalem. There was a sandstorm involved. We saw some of this footage. It looked pretty scary, but then again, we've experienced some of this stuff in LA and Lahaina, so we understand how all these things can happen at the same time. Then we come to find that, wait a minute, because first, of course, the Israel media is suggesting this is terrorism from Palestinians. They say it's Hamas doing this. That's of course what they're saying. They're talking about arresting a bunch of Palestinians for this, but we don't actually see the arrests or who they're arresting. But we see a lot of that, and of course, we're like, okay, we're suspicious of this. But then the truth comes out. It turns out that the settlers themselves, who are trying to start fires on this land in the West Bank, the wind that was going ends up pushing back and going the wrong direction into what you call their territory, as they call it, and it started the fire themselves. So these settlers apparently started the fires themselves, and they're still going today, almost a week later, Garland. So it's pretty phenomenal what happened. And then this part's also very important, that of course Israel reaches out to the international community and asks for help, because they need help protecting their people from this horrible thing that's going on, and they expect that type of help from the same people they've been ignoring when they've been called criminals, crimes against humanity. They've been ignoring the international community, and now they need their help. So there's a lot of twists and irony to this whole situation, but we are keeping an eye on it here from Hollywood for sure.
Well, and the symbolism, Israel started a fire to try to hurt the someone else, and it blew back and burned, and they got burned by the fire they started. Pretty interesting symbolism we could talk about there. On the long term, I think that's going to be the case for everything that's happened with Israel. Speaking of the settlers, I actually shared something recently about this documentary called The Settlers that's stirring up a lot of commotion. Maybe you could talk to us about it.
Yeah. So this film, this director from the BBC, and he's been around a little while, and he's been able to get this film up. It is called The Settlers, Garland. It hit Twitter a few days ago, and it's about an hour and 2 minutes long. I recommend everybody check this thing out before it's gone. Although I don't think it's going to be gone. I think there's some protection behind it, which is great. We don't see that too often. We always see a lot of pushback when we get any sort of narration, any sort of story. Well, you guys remember the documentary here in Hollywood that won Best Documentary just a couple months ago. There was major pushback there as far as going after the filmmakers. We're seeing that right now, but just the film itself, the reason why this is such a great film is because it's told in a way where the filmmaker himself, Louis, he turns the camera he just points the camera right at the settlers themselves. He's made acquaintances. I'm not gonna say he's made friends with them, but he got cool enough with them where they want to speak. They want to tell their point of view. So you just point, you shoot, you let them talk, and they basically put their own foots in their own mouth. They tell the viewer how psychopathic they are, how insane they are, with their logic of that they're the only people that matter. Nobody else matters. We don't even want to call them Palestinians. They're not even worth being called that. So most of the movie is them giving away their own game plan. And so and this is why I think that you could say that this is just an opportunity for the settlers to speak. Now they have a platform to do it. Tell us what's going on with you from your point of view. However, as you probably guessed, Gon, there's a lot of people upset about this. A lot of Zionists saying this is an anti-Semitic movie, which is insane, because what is so anti-Semitic about you talking and the director saying, tell me what's going on? What is happening here? And he does a remarkable job at just kind of looking back at them and with that face of concern. And he doesn't have to say too much himself. He just has to let them talk. And that's what's going on here. And of course, we are seeing a lot of pushback on this, Garland. Just today, I mean, we saw that one of his subjects in the film, he's getting harassed like over and over right now because of this film, excessively by the military that's there, that's part of this, and it's in the West Bank area. We know that they're just like in Palestine and just like in Gaza, there's this open air prison situation where they get constantly harassed, constantly there's patrolling going on. But it's definitely amped up since this movie has been released a few days ago. But I do recommend everybody check this thing out. It's called The Settlers.
Well, here's an example. As soon as I did a search, right? And there we go on Yahoo News. The Seller document shows only half the story. Well, you know what's interesting? The half they show is enough. They talk a little bit about it. Fear was not a product of my imagination, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thousands have lost their lives to similar attacks over the years, some blown up in buses. My mother always slept with a pistol under her pillow. It was not an act of bravado, but of keeping us safe. Listen to this. Palestinian attacks against Israelis are far more common than the inverse. Far more. I mean, the Palestinians are flying over the Israelis, dropping bombs on them, genociding their entire communities, killing them, tens of thousands, blowing. I think pretty much every hospital in Israel has been blown up by the Palestinians with jets. According to data from Shin Bet, imagine that, they're Israel's internal security agency. Well, you certainly know that if you get data from Shin Bet, that they would not be biased in any way. Palestinians carried out 6,828 attacks against Israelis, excluding the October 7th massacre.
Mm-hmm.
In contrast, there were a paltry 673 attacks against Palestinians committed by the Israelis in 2024. Wow, isn't that it? Of course, not counting, the few minor little altercations that happened since October 7th. If you adjust these numbers, it means that your Palestinians committed between 2 and 3 times more attacks than Israelis. Here's what's interesting. 2024, I wonder why they left out 2025. For some reason, I guess nothing really occurred, much really of consequence in 2025. So why would you want to add a year like that? So now we got it. According to Yahoo News, it's the Palestinians that are carrying out far more attacks against the Israelis. They're just sleeping with pillows guns under their pillows to protect themselves from the nonstop massacres of the Palestinians. That's what Yahoo puts up. That's the first story when I did a search. The first story that came up.
You know, it's so funny, Garland. You're finding the first story that comes up. The headline itself is saying this film is only half the story, which is remarkably ironic in and of itself, because we were just discussing, as right before you brought that up, we were just discussing how turning the camera on the settlers themselves and letting them talk, that you could say that is half the story of them telling their story. The other half is going into Gaza, which he was unable to do. He does not go into Gaza, into the ruins, into the people that are starving to death right now. What about that half? He couldn't do that. We don't expect him to. We excuse that part. We actually want to hear what the settlers have to say. But the fact that this article starts with a headline saying you're only getting half the story in a twisted backwards way is sick to me. It's more than ironic. It's disgusting. That's not what this film is demonstrating here in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and it's interesting that that's the other part about it, you know, that what we get in the West is such absurdities. What we get in the West, no matter what, that Israel can just massacre, can literally commit a genocide. And they'll say it's half the story. Well, no, it's not half the story. And here's the thing. This is out of the mouths of the settlers. So what you're saying is, this person's saying is, if you take a camera and point it at the settlers and say talk, that somehow you'll be misled with misinformation.
Exactly.
It's misleading to just, I mean, what are we going to do? Just listen to the settlers and let them talk for themselves and then make a judgment on what comes out of their own mouths? Certainly not. That's misinformation. What we need to do is we need this person to reinterpret and tell us how, notwithstanding what's happening since the genocide started, in a particular year, according to Israelis' intelligence agency. That's what the next thing I love. Well, let me give you some data that came directly from Israelis' intelligence agency. I got an idea. Why don't we go to the Palestinians and get their data and compare it to Israel's data? And why don't we go more than just before this happened? Why don't we go before? Why don't we add 2025? You know, why don't we add everything, including well, here's the other thing. When I look at that, when this person talks about there's more attacks on Israelis than Palestinians in 2024, clearly they don't include military attacks on Palestinians.
No,
because 6,000, that's a day. Every time they fire a shell, that's an attack on Palestinians.
So this is how you steer, and we know this, that you can steer any statistic you want just by picking and choosing. It's about selective information. And like you said, that's exactly what they're doing here. Why would they include military attacks? Because those are against the terrorists. Those are against Hamas. Those don't count as civilian attacks, right? So you whittle it down to just a handful that you're going to pretend that that's all we're talking about here, when these people are being bombarded by military attacks every single day, every hour of the day. This is to put these numbers together like this it's disgusting that anybody were going to look at this and think that these numbers are real in any way, shape, or form. And then again, as far as the attacks of Palestinians on Israelis, that's also a ludicrous number. These guys, they do the same thing we've been doing here in this country since 9/11. It's we're always on terror alert, always on alert. We have an alert, terror alert. That's what they do there constantly. And it keeps, by the way, it keeps the people that live in Israel also in a state of fear, like we experienced here in our country. This, oh my God, they're coming for us. They're gonna fly down with their bare feet again and behead more of our babies and put them in ovens. So they are also bombarded with that fear factor, that sense of constantly living on edge when nothing's actually happening. And we actually see this in the movie too. When he's in there in that occupied area, there's all these, oh, warning, we got to lock down. There's an attack coming. The attack never comes. Rocket attack coming. No, it doesn't actually come. So that's, again, it's a technique that governments use to keep their people constantly living in fear. And we know something about that as we've lived through these past few decades here in our country.
Yeah, about that, we certainly do understand that. You know, it's always, remember this, and I'll never forget this. And this is when I kind of realized that Americans were sheep, to be frank. This was before COVID. You may remember this. After 9/11, when they were doing the whole bin Laden is out to get you thing, there people are going to remember this. They literally said to people, look, we may have a biological attack. So you should go out and get plastic and duct tape so that when there's this biological attack, you can put plastic over your windows and duct tape. And people went out and they bought I knew people that did it. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You really think they're going to come to Pasadena, Maryland? You know what I mean? A suburb, 6, 7, 8 miles from Baltimore, kind of on the water, on the Chesapeake Bay, nothing but houses, nothing much lived. You know what I mean? Some middle class houses. Then on the water is the wealthy houses, and then there's different things like that. You know, just a community, a suburban community, right? And you really think that Bin Laden's like, Pasadena, Maryland, we got to launch a biological attack there, and then the whole empire will fall. And they're like, well, they told us to do it. I'm like, if they told you to go jump off the end of that pier and drown yourself, would you do that? You know? So, yeah, exactly. Part of the game is to keep the people. And the lady literally says, my mother, the daughter of a Jewish refugee family from Baghdad. Well, why did you stay the hell in Baghdad? You know what I mean? What are you doing coming to their, you're going to come to their property, throw them out, genocide and massacre them, take their homes, and then you wonder why they're pissed at you, trying to get you to leave.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll put it like this. I'm sitting in my house. If somebody came and a bunch of guys grabbed me and threw me out and then they like all moved their families in, I'd probably be pissed. I may try to fight back, but they never take it. I mean, even the story, a Jewish refugee family from Baghdad. Wait a minute. Your refugee family that took somebody else's property and moved into it. How the hell are you a refugee?
Yeah. Yeah. That part doesn't matter, Garland, because of scripture, because of God's word, all this stuff. That's how it works. And that's the justification that they do. You know, I think another part about a film like this that scares them is the fact that they are unable to do the thing they want to do. They want to present, and this is while the camera's rolling, they want to present that Palestinians are violent, that they don't like being occupied, so they're gonna push back because they just, they hate Jews, and they want to show it, and they can't seem to get that reaction. And it's a real lesson in how we have to take the high road and keep our composure. If these people, the Palestinian people, have this type of just grace and stamina and just composure and the ability to stand there as they're being harassed constantly, being bullied into taking the bait, and they don't. It's phenomenal to watch, Garland. It's something I think we all need to apply to our own lives, because there's always, we all deal with this on some degree of people trying to bait us into something. Just take that breath. If the Palestinians can do it, we certainly can. And they definitely demonstrate that. And I think that's another reason why the Zionists are so pissed about a film like this, because it shows just total restraint, while the other side is just constantly coming at them like, come on, hit back. And they don't. They stand their ground. It's not about bending over. That's not what I'm talking about. Standing your ground, but not throwing that punch, because that's what they want. And it's just remarkable to see that type of composure in so many people that have been through so much more than we can even fathom ourselves.
Yeah, they can't stand that you expose them. Here's another example. Look at this. Here's Norm Coleman. The masters of the universe are Jews. Former U.S. Senator Norm Coleman proclaims at the Jerusalem JNS Policy Summit, calling on Jewish tech industry CEOs to counteract Generation Z's growing support for Palestine. The masters of the universe are Jews. So that's the mentality of the settlers. And I would make this argument. There could be nothing worse for the Jewish diaspora. There could be nothing worse for Jews around the world than lunatics. Because what do you have? You have people who hate Jewish people, right? And they're like, the Jewish bankers are trying to fill in the blank. They're trying to work. They've got like documents, the protocols of the elders of Zion. You know what I mean? They're trying to put hatreds. Now, meanwhile, a lot of my Jewish friends are in the street. They're against this. They're opposing this. They're pushing back as best they can. They're making noise. They're taking heat for it. But you got lunatics like this, Norm Coleman, the masters of the universe are Jews. I'll be honest with you. I have a fear. I have a concern that at some point in the long run here, that there'll be blowback on Jewish people around the world that, feel this is wrong, that maybe necessarily don't go along with this, etc. That lunatics running around saying the masters of the universe are Jews these are the kind of people that create anti-Semitism. Now, they say it's anti-Semitism. If I say, I don't think he should be saying that, it's not good for Jewish people to be saying that, I'm an anti-Semite. But I have a concern that at some point, as sentiment turns more and more against Israel, that rather than just say, I hate Israel, I don't like Israel, I don't, like what they did, there are a lot of people that will say, what did Israel say? We're the voice of Jews worldwide. We are the center of, world Jewry and all that stuff. That people will take that and say, okay, well, then I'm going to put the blame on all the Jews, and there'll be violence against innocent Jewish people and violence against Jewish people that fought against this because of these types of lunatics taking these kind of positions and playing right into the stereotypes of those who want to blame everything in the world on Jewish people.
Garland, I'm with you. You bring up a good point. I'm with you on what could happen from here. We're playing with fire as far as the pushback, but I want to be absolutely clear here. I don't feel like something like this can naturally happen on its own. I think that as we know about Zionism in and of itself, Zionism feeds off of anti-Semitism.
Yes.
It needs it to exist.
Good point.
If you don't have anti-Semitism, Zionism cannot exist. They know that, so they have to create it at any time, any way, shape, or form they can do it. They're working on it. Believe me, they're working on it right now. How can we create more anti-Semitism? So this is fabricated Jew hate that we should be worried about. What type of thing that can they create to pretend that there's people around the world going after Jews? That's what they want. So we just have to recognize that that's their tactic and remind people in the streets that we are protesting a state of mind, not a race or a culture. It's a state of mind that you choose to have. We are 100% against Zionism because when you're a Zionist, you choose to wake up in the morning and go about your day. You don't have to be a Zionist. You can choose not to. Christians are perfectly good at being Zionists and not being Zionists, just like Jews. We all know this. So we just have to keep the message strong in the protesting and know that if we see any violence happening and any words being presented in a way that seems like, that doesn't sound right, that doesn't seem like on message, know that it's coming from a dishonest place. They're trying to create it. Let's just fight back harder. But I don't think this is a natural thing that will occur. I think most people around the world are understanding what a genocide looks like, and they don't care who's doing it. Whoever's doing the genocide, we're against that. And we're against that mindset of Zionism, no matter who's doing it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you know what? I'm glad you said that because it made me think. When I said, Norm Coleman, whatever, saying this stuff could create anti-Semitism. Come to think of it, that's exactly why he's saying it.
Yeah,
you make sense. That's why he's saying it. Master of the Universe of Jews. That'll piss people off, and people will push back. People will get, no, they're not. They're whatever. And then guess what? Then they get exactly what they want, the dynamic that they need. I don't see any difference than that. Him saying that and the positions they're taking, that when I see these goose-stepping Nazis running around in Ukraine saying we're the masters of the white race and we must lead the white race to, rule the world, blah, blah, blah. It's the same exact mentality that says there's an supremacy. I think the difference is, as you said, the Colemans of the world, the Netanyahus of the world, that nothing makes them happier. I put it like this. As Joe Biden once said, if Israel didn't exist, we'd have to invent it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So these Zionists say, if there's no anti-Semitism out there, we got to invent it. You know what I mean? That's what it is. Darn, where's the anti-Semitism? I just don't see it. That's okay. Hold my beer. Yeah. We're going to get this anti-Semitism going. And then we'll say, and it's so bad that when it comes to colleges, they have to say, well, we don't have any anti-Semitism. What are we going to do? Well, there's some guys over there that are saying they're opposed to genocide. Close enough, we'll call that anti-Semitism. Exactly. So now anybody who says I don't like Israel, Trump, who came to stop censorship, remember that? He was going to fight back against censorship. Now, what we have is, the worst censorship we could ever, 100 times worse than we've ever seen before. Anytime you're literally throwing people out of country and deporting people. Yeah. Just a little bit of a different strain of censorship.
Yeah. And now we have bills like this House bill, HR 867. It's an anti-boycott act. It's sponsored by Mark Lauer, and all these Democrats, Republicans are all on board. It's giving a $1 million fine to an American. This isn't visa holder, green card holders. This is American citizens, up to $1 million fine or 20 years in prison for any American participating in boycotts against Israel and Israel settlements if they're sponsored by the UN or EU. This is in the House right now being voted on. They're not doing this because they're trying to combat anti-Semitism. They're doing this because this is what they always wanted to do. And they created an environment in which they can get away with this. So let's hope this doesn't go through. I saw that it definitely got some slowdown. It got some pushback. That's very good news to see that. Marjorie Taylor Greene has spoken out about it. That's awesome. So we need more of that pushback. But the fact that this is even a bill and it exists is because they wanted it that way. And that's the environment they're creating on purpose.
Right. And here's what kills me. I can boycott Great Britain. I can boycott the US. I can literally say, you know what? I'm pissed at the US because of something, because of Israel. I can say, you know what? I'm unhappy with that. I'm only going to buy products that are made in China. And I can do it. And I can say to other people, everybody, let's only buy products made in China. Everybody, China, China. Oh, wait a minute. I already do that. But that's not important now. I can intentionally do it, right? Only buying product. Why? Because of I can do it to the US, to the country that I live in. Yeah. I can then go boycott the US. I could protest against the US. I could burn US flags, everything I want. Death to America. But I can't do any of that stuff to Israel, or I get like $1 million fine. And of course, I'll be mercilessly beaten by a bunch of cops in black suits that show up very, very shortly.
Yeah. And you might be deported to El Salvador, too, into a super prison. So that's coming. That's next. That's what the MAGAs have all been applauding about, with little knowing that this is going to spill over onto American citizens as well, not just green card and visa holders, but actual American citizens. That's where they're headed with this. So no, make no mistake, this is not about battling anti-Semitism. It's about creating the theater of anti-Semitism in order to justify these type of bills like we're seeing right now on the House floor.
Yeah, but I'll tell you right now, we're talking about things that really aren't important. Hold on. That's the problem. We're not talking about the important things. We got to worry about this horrific danger. We got to bring it up whenever we talk. There's a terrible danger to Americans that has to be addressed. I'm suggesting maybe we need to go into another lockdown or something like that. Look at this. Measles cases up to 6, including 4 in southern Illinois. What the hell are we doing talking about genocides, nuclear war, all these terrible things when there's 6 measles cases, for God's sake, man.
Oh my God, if that number gets any higher, Garland, if we hit 2 digits, I'm telling you, we're screwed. That's the end of the world as we know it. Oh my God. Thank you for bringing that up to my attention. I need to go out and get a few shots for this. There's another MMR, I think, going on. I don't know. It's hard to understand what the up-to-date vax is right now, just because when I go and I check with RFK Jr., who's supposed to be fighting this stuff, when I go check with him, it seems like the thing he says is our biggest health crisis right now is anti-Semitism. So I'm all mixed up, Garland. I don't know what to think, but just please somebody tell me what shot to take so I can not be one of these 6, 7, or 8, or God knows, maybe 10 people by the end of the show. I don't know. I just somebody tell me what shot to take so I feel okay.
Well, here's the thing. They got it bad in Missouri. This is how bad it is. They have a possible measles exposure. Not a measles case. At that point, have to be like bird flu, really, where they just kill everybody in Missouri. You know what I mean? If they actually have a case of just do like bird flu, where they killed millions of chickens, just put a wall all the way around Missouri and just drop a nuke, sarin gas, just kill everybody in if you actually have somebody that, or even maybe, let's say some guy has pimples and they kind of look like measles, close enough. But now we're on that edge because, and this is reporting, this is our news. I'm telling you right now, the news in this country, they're on top of it. They're reporting a possible measles exposure. That's how how close they are following this deadly epidemic where someone, probably never, but theoretically, somebody could die of measles.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great that they're up on top of it. They have to be ahead of it. It's, get us the information before it breaks out, just so we're ready. We're ready for the death. We're waiting by the TV. We're looking at CNN. Get that number up. I'm thinking the next step, Garland, is when people go into the ER, they were in a car accident, they're on their deathbed. I'm ready to see that, just make sure they had measles. So when they die from the car accident, we can say that they died with measles and change it to from measles. I think that's going to be the next step too. We can't wait for that one. Start piling on the casualties there. That'll get our attention.
And we got to get back to, maybe the first case, patient 0, which I'm sure we'll find in Wuhan, China, or somebody like that. Couldn't be anywhere near Fort Detrick, a new case of measles where they were probably like working on weaponizing measles. Absolutely not. We must go it'll be either China, North Korea, Iran, or Russia. That's because where else would a disease ever come from other than those 4, unless we find another country that we really hate. As soon as we find another country that we really hate, maybe chickenpox will come from there. But that's where we are. I'll put it like this. When I was a kid, you came home and you're like rubbing your hand because you're like 8. And your mom goes, "What's going on here?" "I had my hand's itching." And she'd look down. "Let me see, take your shirt off." You take your shirt. She'd turn around. She'd look at your back a little bit. And she'd say, "Yeah, you got measles." And you go, "What are measles?" "You're going to stay home for a week. That's all. That's what measles is. You're going to stay home for a week." "Oh, yay, I have to go to school for." But then they put some calamine lotion or something the hell on it, and you'd be itching a little bit, and you'd be a bit uncomfortable, and then you'd go back to school after a week, and people go, "What happened? Little Garland, how come you missed a week of school?" And you go, "I had measles." And they go, "Oh, yeah, a bunch of other kids in the class had measles." Next, sit down. But now they'd have to close down the entire school system. Probably, maybe if not just evacuate the county as soon as they had a report of a possible measles exposure. Mm-hmm. That's really it ain't the measles that'll kill you. It's a potential exposure to measles. That's the most dangerous part of it here. That'll just probably scare you to death. In fact, if your kid is potentially exposed to measles, the whole family should go to El Salvador to a prison.
That's where we're headed. But Garland, thanks for sharing that story of your childhood. I mean, that must have been really traumatic. That child, it's very. I'm thinking that was child abuse, and I'm thinking you're still traumatized from it, PTSD. I have my own child abuse story. My mom would have us go to a chicken pox party and all get chicken pox. I'm still traumatized from getting it, having natural immunity from it, and never having to worry about it ever again. Thanks, Mom, for doing that. But man, I'm now in therapy the rest of my life because of those chickenpox parties. So I'm glad that the society got it together, and we, our health agencies got it together, and now we can lock kids out of school for 2 years at a time with masks on and isolated from each other. That's the way to go. I'm glad we've progressed to that standard, because that child abuse standard you and I went through, that I don't want anyone to ever have to go through that again.
No, in fact, I remember during COVID when they started letting things go back again. In my local high school, they always have a really good basketball team, and I like high school sports. I'll go to high school, lacrosse. I enjoy high school sports. It's a lot of fun. And I go to the high school basketball games. The kids were in the layup lines, doing layups and doing stuff the kids doing before the game. They had to have on masks. They're sitting on the bench. They get up. They did it in the NBA too, though. Actually,
they did.
But I'm looking at a high school basketball game. And why do you do warm up? So you'll get your sweat built. Then they get out. They run into each other. They run into the ref. They slide into each other. They're hugging each other under the basket, throwing elbows. Some guys bleeding. Some guys crying. Some guys wrestling around on the floor. They're doing what kids do at a high school basketball game, right? Over they go to the sit on the bench, and it was county regulation that a kid could be thrown off the team, the school could be fined, the coach could be, they could have to, if they didn't wear a mask on the bench after they sweated all over. That's just how much sense this stuff makes.
Unbelievable that we lived through that, and nobody's apologizing for that ridiculous idea that was implemented on all these high schools, not to mention the colleges, and that the forcing, the mandating of kids, of perfectly healthy people, perfectly healthy young athletes having to take this thing as they're, so we can go back to normal. And then what is normal, Garland? Normal is having heart attacks in the middle of basketball practice. Just ask LeBron James' son. That becomes normal. I played college ball. I don't remember anybody having a heart attack in the middle of practice. We got pretty tired. Our stomachs got upset. They worked us hard. In fact, I remember some of us threw up freshman year from the excessive training, but nobody had a heart attack, unless I'm remembering that incorrectly, Garland. But LeBron James' son having one at USC in the middle of practice wasn't as shocking as the fact that he was the second player in that team to have it that same year. So this is the new normal that they prepared us for. And like I said, no one's going to apologize. No one's going to account for the ridiculous policies that we are now reminiscing on. And we can have fun being sarcastic about it, and we have to have fun, make light of it. But at the end of the day, people suffered, and no one's going to account for it. No one's going to talk about it again, unless they listen to our shows, because we're talking about it. We're not going to forget.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing, and you got to see this, since we're on this critical, dangerous subject. U.S. reports. Here we go. Possible second measles death. Cases rising. Three confirmed cases in New Jersey, but they report a possible second measles death. It's possible that a second person died of the measles. Now, it could have had something to do with they fell out of a window on the 12th floor of a building, but that probably are totally unrelated. But so, I mean, here's the way I see it. They have a vaccine, and somebody makes money if lots of people get the measles vaccine. This is just me. I'm not saying that's the reason. I'm not saying these things are connected, but I'm saying they now have a vaccine for measles. And if people who maybe didn't get the vaccine for measles, somebody makes money. And the scarier measles are, the more likely it is that people will be convinced. If you just say like Garland, well, shit, everybody I knew had the measles. It was normal and nobody died. What the hell out this? What are you talking about? If you say that, you ain't making no money. But you have to show a possible second death. Do you know one of the how many kids die? This is I remember seeing this. A number of children die every year. You know those 5-gallon buckets? Have you ever seen this where there's water in the buckets and they stick their head in the bucket upside down and they get caught and they drown and die? A certain number of kids die every year just from putting their heads getting stuck up in a 5-gallon bucket and drowning. Okay, probably at least 2. So the measles death, probably actually hundreds and hundreds actually, but still, my point is, and they don't have a measles death. It's possible second measles death. Second measles death. That would be 2.
Yeah.
And my understanding was the first measles death may have been debunked.
So it was the second. It was the second one, I believe, was debunked. So they, without printing a front page retraction, because we never get that, Garland. They never admit to lying and being wrong on purpose. They just redo the count. So I'm at least happy to say that second measles death, I think, was already reported in Texas, but because the father spoke up and said, no, this was not a measles death. My daughter did not die from measles. They might have retracted it then. And that's why we're seeing this New Jersey report saying possible second, because they had to take a step back and pretend they never reported the first one. That's what I'm thinking hearing this article. But yeah, that the father spoke up bravely on behalf of her daughter.
Right. Measles could return to endemic standards if, what do you know? U.S. vaccination rates fall further. Man, that would be the end of everything, man. If measles go to endemic rate, we don't want to see that happen. So let's all get together. We must pray. My suggestion is after 9/11, they gave us some really good advice, and they told us to get plastic and duct tape so that we could put plastic and duct tape over our windows just in case we experience a biological attack or something like that. So my thing is this. Maybe that could protect us from measles too. Maybe we could just all cover our bodies in plastic and duct tape, but may have a little problem with air getting through. But one damn thing for sure, we wouldn't get measles.
That's right.
So there we go. So we need to, put together some kind of a, plan to protect ourselves from possible exposures to measles. And there won't be any more possible measles deaths that have already been debunked. Unbelievable. All right, let's talk about another great show, a movie that's out. It is one that is clearly an absolute work of art that is totally without any foreign policy implication, shall we say. Sean Penn, a guy who spent more time in Ukraine than Vladimir Zelensky. he's got a new film that's screening in Hollywood last night called Words of War.
Words of War. This is wow, what an intense film. Now there was a screening here. I didn't go to the screening, but I know people that went. They shared some of the footage. There was a Q&A after. Here's what we know about the film. Okay, so the director is James Strong, working with executive producer Sean Penn. They've been working on this for a couple years. It's about a Russian reporter who has this horrible thing happen to her as she's trying to report on the evils of Putin. And apparently she is killed in an elevator in October of 2006. And it's this horrific story of a journalist that kind of meets a tragic end. The reason why this movie got made, and the director talks about this. We've heard James Strong talk about why this movie was important to be made. When Sean Penn came to him and they put it together, Jason Isaacs stars as the lead actor. And again, this is not a documentary. This is a fiction. This is a scripted piece of Hollywood crap. We stick it in the file along with all the other CIA propaganda films that are supposed to be about American exceptionalism and why our enemy is so bad and why we feel for them in this heart-wrenching story of a journalist being taken down by a dictating psychopath Putin. So the reason this movie was made is because they were all afraid of this strong relationship that Trump and Putin were making together, and they had to push back. They're saying that the point of this film is to push back against this very strong relationship that they were petrified of Trump and Putin. And this is the way you push back. You find a heart-wrenching story, and you make it bigger than it is, and you talk about journalism. And this is where you and I know Garland's going to strike a chord with you too. The fact that they're suggesting with this film that journalism is dead in Russia because of the psychopath Putin, and we have freedom of press here. That's the message, that we need to appreciate our freedom of press, our freedom of speech, and we need to be very empathetic to Russian citizens right now who are living in fear, living without free press, living without a voice to go against their evil dictator. That's the purpose of this film. And they're very proud to talk about that purpose. And the audiences are going crazy over it here in Hollywood. And it's disgusting from my vantage point to see this.
Here's what's interesting. If you really want to get the spookery, go to Wikipedia. Words of War is a biographical drama film. Well, wait a minute. A biographical drama film is true. A biographical drama film is something that depicts reality, but they change the names and change everything up, and maybe they use a little bit of creative license, shall we say?
Oh yeah.
But so the implication when you read this, you would think, that's a true story, but they just changed the names to you know what I mean? And in reality, it sounds to me like it was just a written up bullcrap.
Oh yeah. Well, that's how you can get away with it. You don't have to, you don't have to fake a documentary. All you have to do is just write a good script that has those heart-wrenching moments. Third act builds, and you're on board with the main character, and then she's killed, and then you feel for her. The whole thing can be exactly like you're saying, Garland. The whole thing is dramatically intensified. I do think they use the real woman's name in this particular piece, but you're going to have a caption. A caption will be either at the beginning of the film or at the end. That's going to say this is based on true events, or it's going to say inspired by true events.
Yeah.
That's your little cushion, your little get out of jail free card if something doesn't line up with what really happened. But again, the purpose is to get emotion from the audience and build that American exceptionalism. America's the good guy and Putin's bad. And it gets, as Chomsky always told us, it's manufacturing consent, using devices like this to trick the public into more war with Ukraine, more war, wherever you want us to go, more war, because we're the good guys and they're the bad guys.
Well, okay. Here's let me add a controversy I just found online, right? So they're supposed to be doing the life of this woman named Anna Politkovskaya, right?
Yeah.
That's supposed to be the German.
That's
Listen to this. The journalist. In February 2023, the family of Anna Politkovskaya released a joint statement expressing concern about the factual accuracy of the script they had been given, that they had not contributed in any way, nor had they granted permission for their names to be used in the film. So they're like, hey, look at this. Putin bad, Putin bad, Putin bad. we're doing what your daughter, and they're like, yeah, nobody gave us the script. And finally they look at it and they're like, hey, that ain't what happened.
There it is.
So the family themselves come out and say, this is a crock of bullshit. Get out of here.
There it is.
We'll just ignore that and we'll just move forward with it. It's almost like the McNitzky Act, with the guy Bill Browder. When you look into that, every single time a pack of lies. And in fact, I think they made a movie about the Magnitzky Act, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been called Red Notice or something.
They might have. I have to check on that. But this is they do this all. This is the game plan. This is the strategy of Hollywood. We understand that these CIA greenlit films are again about doing the same thing over and over, striking an emotional chord with the American audience, getting us on board for more war machine, more NATO support. Don't take our NATO. Remember that? Hands off NATO. This is how you get people to think this, because they go to the movies, they watch these films, they look at Sean Penn's face. He's the perfect. He's got that face of I'm trying to do good, and I saw the footage from last night of him doing this right here in Hollywood, and he's just sitting up there with the mic, sitting in the chair, doing the Q&A, and he's got that look. I'm just trying to do something good for humanity. But dude, you're the guy who goes on Fox News with your supposed nemesis, Sean Hannity, and the two of you sitting there in the beginning of the Ukraine war saying, we don't agree on much, but we agree on one thing. We got to stick it to Putin and show the world that we're capable of using our nuclear weapons. That's Sean Penn. Don't be fooled by that look in his eyes of I'm trying to do something for humanity. It's all BS. And this is a blueprint they use over and over. And he's just the guy a go-to guy that's very good at doing this and packaging this. So I just want to warn anybody that sees this film or hears good reviews of this film and you're invited to go. I recommend this. If you're here in LA and Sean Penn does another Q&A, go to the film and stand up and ask a question at the end of the film. Ask him, hey, how did you respond when the family of this dead journalist reached out and said, we don't approve of your script? What was your reaction? Let the room know that they skipped that step. So I'm glad you found that, Garland, because this is the way we push back. We ask the questions that need to be asked directly to their faces, and he's going to have to answer that question.
Yeah. I remember I did a lot of work on the Magnitsky Act with Bill Browder, and I found in a lawsuit, because they had this story and they were like, yes, Magnitsky was my lawyer and he was taken to prison and he was beaten by Putin's thugs and beaten to death in prison, and he was an attorney, and he came to find out the guy was an accountant, and he was the one who was involved in covering up Bill Browder's this big tax scheme that he did. And when he went to jail, they said, oh no, then they turned him into a lawyer who was and made up this whole scheme. And there is a video, I can probably find it, because the whole thing was Magnitzky was Bill Browder's lawyer. That was his whole, he was my lawyer, and he was trying to save me from the evil Putin. And there's video in a trial of where Bill Browder was being depositioned, and they said, Sergei Magnitsky, they said he never went to law school, never got a law degree. There's no evidence of him being a lawyer. Are you saying he's a lawyer? And he's like, he's my lawyer. He's like, no. Are you saying he's a lawyer? He never went to law school and he never got a law degree, and he was working as an accountant. And he worked for you as an accountant, but we have no evidence that he's ever been a lawyer. Are you saying that he's a lawyer? And he goes, he's my lawyer. That's all he could say, is he's my lawyer, because when he was under when he was being depositioned, he had this horrible look on his face, like, oh crap, I've made up this whole story about Sergei Magnitsky. His family, his wife, his mother, everybody that worked with him was like, oh yeah, no, he's an accountant. In fact, let me go one further. If anybody wants to know about the Magnitzky Act, there's a movie called The Magnitzky Act Behind the Scenes, made by a guy named Andrei Nekrasov. Andrei, who I interviewed, when he started making the movie, he thought Bill Browder's story was true. The movie was supposed to be about the evil Putin killing Sergei Magnitsky, doing all this terrible stuff. That's what the movie was about. About halfway through, Magnitsky was like, none of this stuff's adding up. I'm trying to put this thing together and it doesn't make sense. So he calls Browder and says, hey, I need to, I'm working on the movie. I need some help. Browder comes, he says, you said this, but I talked to the people that work with him and they said he was accountant. And you said this, and he starts putting in front of him all this stuff that his story makes no sense. You know what Browder does? He attacks him as a Putin puppet.
Of course.
But Browder had been working with him to do a documentary, evil Putin, all this kind of crap. And when the guy who was genuine says, none of your story adds up. And what he called him in for was to try to straighten him out, was to say, well, I was told this, but you said that. I was told this, but you said this. How do you square this circle so we can go forward with this documentary? And Browder just attacked him, walked out and attacked him as a Putin puppet. So he finished the documentary with the truth. And he's like, I started off on this guy's side, but the evidence showed me that he was lying. And when I tried to ask him, he attacked me as a Putin puppet.
Yeah.
That's the game.
Yeah. And good for him for asking those questions. We have to all do this. And we know the game plan. We know we're going to be called these names. That's how it works. That was, I knew that when you said that, girl, I was like, of course he was called the Putin puppet. But we have to just keep going and ask the questions that need to be asked. And just that, if you're being called a Putin puppet, you're probably on the right track and doing the right thing. As when you're being called anti-science and anti-vaxxer, it means you're also asking the right questions, as we all know.
So if you're being called an anti-Semite, anti-science, an anti-vaxxer, a Putin puppet, hey, you're probably, have a pretty good understanding of what's going on.
I got one more. Conspiracy theorist.
Oh,
there it is. That's the package.
9/11. What's the 9/11 truth or crazy person? You wouldn't want to leave that out.
Yeah.
And certainly we know that there was a single lone gunman pretty much in every every assassination has ever been is always a single crazy person, lone gunman who fires a bullet that ricochets 10 times around and kills like 5 people. So it always works.
Yeah, magic bullets. That's exactly how assassinations work. We know this. We took science class. We know that's how bullets work. Yeah, these are the names we should wear on our arms with like a badge of honor. That's what we should do because it means we're on the right track and we're asking the right questions. So I say right on. Keep going.
Next question. There's tariffs all over creation. Everybody's getting tariffs these days. It looks like we're looking at maybe, some empty shelves coming up and all kinds of things. Boy, we're really showing China, huh? But now there's new tariffs. Hollywood's getting their own tariffs. What the hell's going on with tariffs of Hollywood movies made in other countries or something?
This is hurting us here, Garland. At least it's on its path to hurt us here. So just to update people if they don't know, Trump is going all in on his tariffs now in Hollywood. He's saying because the movie industry is dying, which we know, we understand it's dying. We talk about this a lot, Garland. I come on the show, we talk about this, that the independent filmmaker is going to rise up from all this studio crap. We know this, but unfortunately, Donald Trump takes his tariff route. This is the bully approach. He's saying that in order to draw filmmakers back to the States, he's going to implement this 100% tariffs on foreign films. And when you say foreign films, he's saying U.S. films that have business outside of the U.S., which you have to have. This is why we know that Hollywood goes and shoots in Canada. We know that they do, visual effects in New Zealand. We know that they're owned by international shareholders, and there's different ways you shoot your film because of cash incentives. The opposite approach to tariffs is cash incentive, positive stuff. This is why films go overseas for incentives, and independent filmmakers also know this. I got people in Serbia who talk about, hey, bring your film out, shoot your indie film in Serbia. We'll give you an immediate 35% cash rebate before you even start filming. So all this is stuff that if Trump was smart about this, he would take, and I hate to give a compliment here to Gavin Newsom, but he knows what's going on. He's in the industry, and he says, oh no, California needs more incentives. So he's already trying to initiate more cash rebates in California to keep films here. Now, Gavin Newsom has to deal with the fact that that's not going to be flying after these 100% tariffs are put on foreign films, which means we're in a tariff war. What's going to happen, Garland, is that China, these industries as big as China, they're not going to flinch a bit on these tariffs. They're just going to put tariffs right back on the US. It's going to be another tariff war in our Hollywood industry. And with all the back and forth that are going to be happening between the studios fighting this out, the independent filmmaker is going to suffer the most. And we're not going to get those cash incentives like battle as we used to have. That used to benefit us, that who could give us the best deal, the best rebate. Now it's going to go the other direction. Who's going to penalize us the most? And once you get penalized on your budgets, everything goes to crap. You can't get a good budget together if you're going to have to add all these penalties for everything you do. This is how films fall apart. We saw it with COVID, all the penalties for COVID this, COVID that. It destroyed the independent filmmaker. And right when we're trying to get this back together, Trump's doing this tariff thing, which is only going to end bad. And I don't mean to rant about it, Garland. I just found out about this. Everyone's sending me this morning, and I'm just like, this is horrible. And I just see that there's no way this can end well unless Trump reneges, takes it back, which I don't know if he's going to do. But that's the only way this thing is going to not end well.
And here's the thing, the problems in Hollywood have nothing to do with where the movies are produced. I don't really check out many movies from Hollywood anymore because everyone's the same. A diverse group of female superheroes fight the male patriarchy and teach us a lesson about, you know what I mean? Yeah, come on. And that's every movie. That's the reason I've seen enough movies about a diverse group of female superheroes showing us how they're going to fight the male patriarchy. That's every movie in Hollywood. That's why I don't go to see them. It's simply because I've seen every one. You only got to see one, and you've seen every one of them. So as far as I'm concerned, the problems in Hollywood don't have to do with where they're made. It's that they're not movies anymore. They're cultural lessons that I really don't want to learn.
This is one of Trump's biggest problems, his ego. We talk about this a lot, but when it comes to like something like Hollywood, where he doesn't go to the movies, he doesn't know this stuff. If he took a moment to look at it and maybe watch one of our shows, we're talking about the problem. Why is Hollywood failing? It's a combination of some stuff, but obviously the subject matter is suffering. These dishonest scripts are being written. Nobody wants to see this stuff. We have an AI problem. We have a striking problem with all the unions are getting screwed. All the workers are getting screwed. So if he just took a moment to look into it, he skips that part. He doesn't want to. He wants to pretend he knows everything before looking into it, and then he comes up with his one. It's a one size fits all attack plan, which is tariff war, and that's what he's doing now to our industry. And it's just too bad because if in another world, another universe, if Trump took just a day, just 24 hours, take a day, look into what's happening here, he might go, there might be something else here that I need to do something about here, other than start another tariff war. But that's the flaw. That's the Achilles heel. Although he's got several Achilles heel, that's one of the biggest ones is his ego, and he doesn't want to look into anything.
And sometimes, look, as you know, Hollywood's failing because of this woke stuff more than anything else. That's what I love movies, but I want a good, decent movie. I'm tired of the same movie over and over. So that's why it's failing. But here's the thing. If I'm president, you know what I say? Well, let's see how this thing works out. Because I feel like it's going to go to crap. And some people around Hollywood are going to wake up and say, hey, I got an idea. Let's open a studio. And it won't be Mr. Wokety woke again. It'll be we'll focus on making good movies and not just teaching people social engineering and cultural lessons and stuff. That what's going to happen is and when they make some decent movies, people are going to go like, hey, that's a pretty good movie. And they're going to watch it. And that if Hollywood's dying because of the crap that it's doing, that it should, but that, maybe something new can be reborn. Maybe some people can start putting some money into some new projects to make some different things happen. You know what I mean? But why does the president need to stick his friggin' fingerprints all over Hollywood and hand all over Hollywood? He's going to fix Hollywood. Who the hell asked him to fix Hollywood?
No. He's not. And if he did look into it in this hypothetical scenario that I'm depicting here, Garland, as far as him taking a day to look into it, one of the things he's going to find out he's not going to like. And that's what we talk about the AI problem. It's a script problem. It's a topic matter problem. But this issue is because he has aligned himself with one of the biggest technocrats, Elon Musk, who has no problem with robots taking over all our jobs. So if he just took 1 second to look at it, he would go, this doesn't look good. And then Elon's going to go, hey, what's going on there, Trump? What are you looking at? He's like, oh, nothing. I just noticed that all the people in Hollywood are losing their jobs to AI, that there are no writers anymore. The AI is writing the scripts. There are no actors anymore. This doesn't look good. And Elon's going to go, well, that's a good thing. That means more people can free up their time to go see the film rather than working on the set. And Trump's going to be like, well, that's not, we're trying to have jobs here. That's not really. And so that's going to be a problem. So maybe that's why he's not looking into it, because he doesn't want to find, he knows that when he sees what's really going on, he's not going to really have an answer to it, because he's unfortunately part of the problem, part of bringing in this digital ID era, part of really just amping up the WEF agenda that he was supposed to be against. And we're living through it. And there's nothing we're going to be able to do about it. So he's kind of just fast tracking the inevitable anyways. But it would be nice if you just took a second just to look, just so you know what's going on before you put out a stupid one-dimensional Truth Social post that has no substance whatsoever, no thought. That's all.
Yeah, well, he's a member of the ruling elite, surrounded by ruling elite people. Garland Nixon's the president, and they say, Garland, hey, what's the problem with Hollywood? And I say, you know what I need to do? I need to go talk to some of the lower level stars that aren't, actors and actresses that aren't stars. I need to talk to some of the cameramen and camera women and dolly grips and best boy grips and people that are just wandering around. I need to talk to the foot soldiers and find out what's going on. Hey, what about the education system? I'm going to go talk to some teachers. What about the hospital? I'm going to go talk to some nurses. That the importance of any industry or anything that you're going to address, there is yes, do you talk to the people in charge? Sure, fair enough. But if you don't talk to the people on the ground who are dealing with the headaches, you never find things out. You know what I mean? You have like the people at the top come up. I found that from in law enforcement. I told you I was a major, right? And when I have lots of people under me, and I go talk to a captain, the regional commander, and say, what's wrong? The regional commander would say, well, all we need to do is this, and this, captain. Institute these policies. All will be fine. And I'd say, fair enough, sounds good. And I'd go talk to officer first class. I go to a district meeting, and I talk to the officers and the corporals. I say, hey guys, what do you think about this? And they'd say, Major, that won't work. And I say, why? They say, well, because if we try to do this, we'd have to do that. And I'm like, that makes sense. Wow. Or sometimes I'd say, it doesn't make sense. I think you can do it, right? But the bottom line is, to me, I could never change or institute some dramatic policy unless I heard from the administrators. But then I heard from the people who had to live with that policy from day to day. And sometimes they would tell you something the administrators never thought of and say, it won't work, because we on the ground have to do it, and this ain't going to work for us. Yeah. And that's what happens. You get Trump talking to Elon Musk, talking to Peter Thiel, whoever the hell, right? Yeah. And they're all gung-ho for this or that, and they all say this will work. But he would talk to the people that have to live with this stuff on a day-to-day basis. They'd say, no, this will never work. And they'd actually be able to tell him why Hollywood is having the problems. But when you're a member of the ruling elite and you're surrounded by members of the ruling elite, that's all you're going to hear.
Yeah, totally. And come on, like we know instinctually that giving incentives is always a bet. I'm not always, but most of the time, a positive kind of incentive is going to be better than a penalty, a punishment. So you don't want a punishment war. You want an incentive war. You want to flip it. Who can give the best deal? Why don't you just offer a better deal? Why don't you just, seriously, man, like just look at how we can get filmmakers excited again, especially the independent filmmaker. They can kind of have an idea that's good, a good script, a good team behind it. Give us those incentives. Don't punish people for going to Serbia and shooting for 35% cash rebate. Don't punish us for then, we're not allowed to come back here and show our films. Don't do that, man. Like it's going to fail. This is a failed idea. I'm telling you guys, mark my words, this will fail. Dramatically fail unless somebody steps him back and says, let's look a little closer at this.
Oh, it'll work about as good as the rest of his tariff policies, which are going to be pretty much disastrous.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Looks like we just crossed over an hour. Man, time flies when you're having fun. Well, be careful up there. I understand there's a possibility There's possible exposures to measles going on in Hollywood. That's the worst kind. The possible exposures are the ones that are the most dangerous. So watch out for possible exposures to measles and possible potential maybe measles deaths. Probably not, but those things are all possible too. Some guy got hit by a tractor trailer, but he found a red spot on his back, and they think it's he's possible. They're going to classify it a measles death. That's my suggestion anyway.
Yeah, no, hey, we're all in this together, Garland. So just 2 more weeks to slow that curve. I'm in. Let's do it.
I think we can do it, man. I think we can get herd immunity. But if we just, everybody goes out, don't forget, get your measles vaccine, get your measles booster, a weekly measles booster, I think is my suggestion, and you'll be fine. All right. Tell everybody where they can find you.
The Homeless Left. We are home based on Rumble. You can find us every Tuesdays and Thursdays, live show, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. As Garland, as you mentioned up front, we are on YouTube. We have to be kind of low key about it, but the show will air on YouTube. It's just not under the Homeless Left banner. That one's gone. That got terminated. So we have to do it in disguise. It's THL. So you can find us at THL Presents on YouTube. And we're looking forward to our next show tomorrow. We got Monica Perez joining us and some other guests coming up in the future as well. So join us on Rumble, and we keep the talk going. We keep the dialogue going. And thanks, Garland, for having me on. And these discussions are always so stimulating for me, and I appreciate all of the back and forth.
Well, if you guys go out and get all your boosters, you'll be the measles list left, I guess, next. No measles anywhere from you. And I'm going to also suggest masks from now on. I think we should wear masks. And I'm going to suggest that everybody in the chat wear masks. That way, nobody breathes the measles on each other.
Safety first.
Yeah, you got to think about that. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. As I always say, the most important thing, we got 310 people right now watching. And what everybody can do to help is share this on all your social media platform. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that could get measles, and they can watch this show and they can learn how to keep each other safe. Yep. And we all want to be safe from the measles. So share this on all your social media platforms. Watch THL Presents on YouTube, The Homeless Left on Rumble. Then they got lots of good stuff too on Rumble. They got a lot of really good shows. You'll really enjoy it. I actually watch it and I really enjoy it. And share this everywhere. Follow me on Rockfin. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on Telegram. You'll see everything scrolling across. If Patreon, buy me a coffee, whatever. If you can afford to donate, that's fine. Even if you can't, just share everything out there, and don't forget to watch The Homeless Left and get your measles weekly vaccine. We're out.